Hello, my friends. It is day 262, and we're reading Haggai chapter 1 and chapter 2. But before we get into our recap today, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video. Hopefully, you're finding the yearly Bible reading program enjoyable and a great help and advantage to you as you read the Bible every single day. If you have not yet accepted the invitation, you can check out the description box below, and there you'll find the link that will take you directly to the YouVersion Bible app, where you can join a number of people reading the Bible every single day. And so we hope you'll join us there. All right, so we are moving along in the Old Testament. We are now reading the prophets who are speaking to Israel after they have returned back from the Promised Land. And if you can imagine, this is a little different. It's different because it is concerned with, it's actually concerned with encouraging the nation of Israel as they try to rebuild this temple that they have allowed to be destroyed. They're rebuilding the temple. So the thing that sticks out, if you can just notice here, the role of the prophets before the destruction was to try to prevent the temple from being destroyed. The role of the prophets after the return is to rebuild the temple that was destroyed. So the role and the function of a prophet actually changes after the return back to Jerusalem. And that's so important to recognize. It is a way of saying, in some sorts, what we feared would happen has happened. Now it's time to go on and go on through life, if you will, and go on with the word or the mission of God as it concerns the people of God. So that's the role of the prophets moving forward. And we're going to see this as we read through the rest of the Old Testament. For Haggai, he was present during the second year of King Darius's reign. And you can see that he was there with Zerubbabel. He was there also with Joshua, the high priest. And so you see the roles now actually being more present and obvious. You have a governor, you have a high priest, which means you have a temple system, which means you have the offering of sacrifices that was predicted by the prophets, determining, or rather stating, that once they go back, then the duty would be obviously to restore worship. So you have a governor, not a king, but you do have a governor. You have a high priest, and then you have the prophets. Okay. Now Haggai is, as you can see in this passage, he is deeply encouraging. He wants them to do two things: build the temple, and he wants them to be spiritually renewed. You can see this all throughout these two chapters. He talks about the Lord being with them. He talks about how the Lord is there to help them along in this project, but it's going to require their obedience and require their submission to him. So the idea that is presented during this time, that natural success cannot be accomplished without spiritual renovation, spiritual discipline, spiritual transformation, is present throughout this entire book. Now, when we look at chapter 2, the reason why Haggai would have been incredibly important is because a lot of people would have been discouraged by the lack of glory, if you will, in this new temple. Now, if you can remember, the people who were there whenever Solomon finished his temple, or at least saw it or heard about it, they would have remembered stories about how the glory fills the temple, how the Shekinah is there, how the people could not even offer sacrifices because the glory of the Lord was so magnificent in that building. Well, then when you get to this temple, none of that seems to be there. It's like, wait a minute, what in the world is going on? Why is our temple so, unimpressive? So in verse 3 it says, does anyone remember this house, this temple, in its former splendor? How in comparison does it look to you now? It must seem like nothing at all. What a terrible feeling that must have been to experience. All right. But notice what he says. He continues to prophesy in verse 7. He says, I will fill this place with glory, says the Lord of heaven's armies. The silver is mine, the gold is mine. The future glory of this temple will be greater than its past glory, says the Lord of heaven's armies. And this place I will bring peace, and I, the Lord of heaven's armies, have spoken. So you see why this would have been important. You also see why the role of Haggai would have been important, because people are not motivated. And that lack of motivation is going to be seen throughout the remainder of the Old Testament. It's going to impact everything they do. And so when you are not able to see the outcome, you're not able to see what is significant about what you're doing, it kind of drains the momentum. And that is why the prophets now go. So when we think about the prophets in today's world, maybe we should think about it twofold. Yes, we should warn, and we should encourage people to be spiritually pure, but we also should encourage them in that purity to do the things that God has assigned to their life, because God has purified them for a purpose. So we see an interesting turn of events here as it pertains to the role that the prophets are placed in, and it'll be interesting to see how that builds up to the coming of Jesus Christ. So let me know what you're thinking. Leave your comments in the comment box below, and we'd love to have some sort of conversation. But until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.